Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We're here in beautiful Fabius on a beautiful winter, snowy day. Unfortunately, we were unable to make the Christmas tree farm trip before Christmas. So today we're going to be looking at what does a Christmas tree farm do when they're not harvesting trees and when there's nobody around. Many people think once harvest is over, that's it for the season for a farmer. So we're going to take a walk through today. My name is Jeremiah Best. I'm with New York Agriculture in the Classroom, and we're going to join Miss Polly Drexler, owner of Springside Farm. So Polly, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What a gorgeous winter day. It's not snowing crazy. That's why it's gorgeous.
So thank you so much for having us. Can you tell us a little bit about Springside Farm? How long have you all been here? And is it just a Christmas tree farm?
It's not just a Christmas tree farm, although we have been growing Christmas trees for about 40 years. We have had a livestock component to our farm. We no longer have a dairy, but we still have sheep and goats and alpacas. And we do a big pumpkin patch, corn maze, agritourism business on this particular farm. We have several parcels, but this farm is for Christmas trees and agritourism, which is when people come to the farm to see the farm, visit the farm, and have fun.
And are you the only farmer who's here? Is this
No,
a family operation?
This is a family farm. My husband and my youngest son, who is a partner in the operation, so this will go on for another generation. We're very pleased with that. This has been a rapidly growing part. This place has been under development for 10 years, and hopefully we'll stop building buildings now. But this is our agritourism farm. It's been very popular, and we're very happy to host people.
So we're going to go ahead and make a transition inside to start taking a look at everything that goes into a farm business, because this is just not a farm that we have tractors and some corn, but this is a business and there are many components. So we're going to go ahead and transition. As we're transitioning, Sarah is going to go ahead and explain a little bit how the virtual field trip is going to run, and we will join you back here in a couple seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Best. So hello again, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. We're really excited to have you. Mr. Best and Miss Polly are gonna take you on the rest of the field trip. And as they're showing you some things, if you have any questions, we would love if you would put them in the Q&A right at the bottom of the screen. If you look at all the Q&A questions we already have in, if you think any are great questions and you also wanna know the answer, go ahead and click that thumbs up so we know that that's something you wanna know.
So we're here at the gift shop and we're going to follow Ms. Drexler in. As many of you are also dealing with the pandemic, farms are having to deal with the pandemic also. You can see that they had to put up signs. And so we're going to be following our mask protocol and social distancing as we go along. And we are going to go ahead and go in with Ms. Drexler.
Come on in. This is our farm store. Because we're a Christmas tree farm, of course, you're going to find ornaments. But we also carry a lot of local products, other artisans, other craftspeople. We carry our own line of yarns and roving and alpaca things. And that's from our own animals. That's my little fun and games. It's a little messy right now. I just got done with inventory. We have a beekeeper on our farm that sells his honey here, among other places, and some excellent woodworkers who make beautiful hand-turned items. We're pretty much sold out of a lot of their things. We have local maple syrup. When people want to buy local, they don't know where it necessarily is, and it's here. We have knitters that bring in stuff they make, and we just go through all that. Our major goal by the 1st of January is to make sure our vendors are paid. But beyond that, before that, we're all about the trees, all about the trees. As you can see, it's at least warm in here. We have a whole kitchen here that runs all fall. But at Christmas time, we generally just do hot chocolate and donuts. But this year, we didn't have them sitting around enjoying anything, or they were just buying their fudge, getting their hot chocolate, and going home because of COVID. No hanging around. This area here is where we make all of our wreaths out of all of our greens. We prune off branches and turn them into things. But this time of year, we are checking our tools, making sure they're all sharp or cleaned up as well as they can be. This is a stem stripper. These are pruners. These are wire cutters, which we always need. These are filthy, filthy aprons because the pitch gets all over your clothes. So those will need to be washed. We send a lot of people out to cut their own trees. And of course, they want a sharp saw. So we have about 50 of these little bow saws here. And after the season, we check them all to make sure they're sharp. These still need new blades put in. And we sharpen our chainsaws. This is our special chainsaw. If any of you know what a chainsaw looks like, you'll know that blade is weird. Well, this is a special one for cutting Christmas trees because you can't necessarily see under the branches very well. So when you have this running, we'll pretend this, maybe we can pretend this is a tree. You can slide it underneath the tree. And when that little thumb part hits the tree branch, it holds it there, the tree stem, it holds it there, and then it cuts it down. And then the tree ends up in the middle of the blade. So when you pull it back, it tips the tree right onto the ground. So its top doesn't break by falling in the wrong direction. And also the person who's cutting it doesn't get tangled up in the branches. That's a very specialized blade for cutting Christmas trees. Extremely popular. I think we have 3 of them. Some things that didn't get put away, my garland making machine. We spend a lot of time checking supplies. Next year, when November rolls around and we have to start making things, it would be a terrible time to find out you are out of wire or you're out of things. This is our wreath decorating table where we kept all our scissors and well, there's a few things I'm cleaning up here, where we kept all our hot glue and all our items. And so right now, we're still in the putting away stage. Everything has to be put away and cataloged. So I'll know how much ribbon to order, how many wreath rings we need to make wreaths next year, how many kissing ball frames, all the things that we're going to need for next year. It's always easier to see it now while it was spread all over the place than order it and then have it all put away and ready to go next year. It's never fun at the last minute. So that's what we're doing right now, planning.
So as we're walking through, if you've received your inquiry bags, this would be a great time to open them. Part of the inquiry experience is to experience, to have that sensory experience. So you'll notice in your bags, there is some ribbon that you might recognize throughout our tour, different places where ribbon might be used. Also, there's some cookies that do come from the same type of trees that are grown here on the farm, and also some sawdust and wood chipping so that you can have the experience as if you were here on the farm with Miss Polly and having the Christmas tree experience. We know that many people haven't had that opportunity to come to a Christmas tree farm. If you're maybe in the city or your family has an artificial tree, you might never have had that experience. So we've also included cookies within the inquiry box. Those are cuttings from the trunks of evergreen trees. Specifically, they were white pines, and those have the same texture, the same smell that you would experience if you were here. So at this time, Sarah, if there are any questions, we can take a pause and take a couple of those questions. I'll do a quick little spin around. This is where would you say, Miss Polly, this is where the action happens once the tree is cut?
Yes, we call this elf prison, where all of us are standing here. You'll hear a lot of hammering, a lot of cutting. There's usually 3 big bins of greens right here. Don't look at those artificial greens, there's something else. But if you have white pine, if there's slices off of a white pine trunk, you should be able to count the rings to see how old that tree was. You count the number of rings going back into the middle and you'll find out how old that tree was when it was cut. We use white pine a lot for accent. We grow a few for Christmas trees, but largely they are mixed in with the firs when we are making greens and wreaths and roping. They're very fluffy. They don't have a ton of fragrance. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. They don't have a lot of fragrance, but they're a nice, fast-growing tree. We have a few.
So Sarah, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have some great questions from our friends in the Q&A box. One question from Miss Clark's class is, how long does it take to grow a tree?
Depends on when you start counting. Now, when you have a pine cone, oh, I do have a pine cone in here. At least this was asked inside. Let's pull that out again. Inside a pine cone is where all the seeds are. So when the cone opens up like this, the seed will fall out. This one's fell out a long time ago. And then you plant the seed. And the first year, the seed is only as big as my finger when it grows. Just a little popping up. That's not what we plant. A nursery plants the seeds in a seedling bed, leaves them there for about 2 years, moves them to another bed. At that point, this little tree, about this big, becomes a transplant. And by moving it into a new bed, it makes its roots grow thicker and fuller and stronger. And when the transplant is now about 4 years old, and it's about this big, 4 to 5 years old. Nope, not including the roots. This is just the above ground part. That's when we get them. And then we put them in the ground in the spring, in April. We plant about 10,000 a year.
And Christopher, we're in Fabius, New York, which is in central New York. We're kind of in between Syracuse, New York, Cortland, New York, DeRuyter, New York, and we're pretty close to Cazenovia, New York. In the foothills, deep in the valleys, it's definitely a beautiful location. So Sarah, do you have another question for us?
Yes, another question is a two-part question. One, how do you organize the trees on your farmland, and how do you maintain them all?
Well, some trees like certain growing conditions, and other trees are a little more tolerant of other things. We grow primarily Fraser fir. Fraser fir is a very fussy tree. It likes it to be high in altitude, dry, and cold. We have very well-drained soil here. And we're also at about 1,400 feet, which is above sea level. So you can look that up. That's actually high for this area. And it's cold here. You can see all the snow around. We have ski slopes around us. So we're high, dry, and cold. Welcome to Pompey Fabius, which is what Fraser fir like. There are areas of certain fields that get a little wetter, where runoff comes from the hills above or whatever. Frasers don't like that. So in those places, we plant its cousin, Canaan fir. And then we'll plant some white pine along the edges and places where we don't think Frasers will like it. So it all depends on what we're planting and where. And also how many trees have already left. We interplant, which means we've got growing trees. You'll see this outside. And we put a little one in. So we interplant in some places, and some places are getting ready to be interplanted, and other places don't need any more. And this year, we had a few places that got cut really hard, and we'll be putting a lot of little transplants in there.
So Miss Polly, let's go ahead and take a walk outside. As we're going out, we're going to see a little bit of equipment. Also, I believe you have a summer camp, an agriculture summer camp.
We do a day camp here, 5 days a week for 6 weeks in the summer, starting about the first week of July. And we have about 24 to 28 kids a week. And we call it the Unplugged and Outdoors Camp. So.
And would this be the classroom across the way here?
One group in there. Well, this year, because of COVID, we had to keep everybody separated. So there's one group in there, and there's one group in this back barn. And they were outdoors most of the time, because all of these barns have large doors that open. They look like walls right now, but that whole wall opens up. And there's 3 doors on that side. That's another barn. Yep. Oh, it's locked. Sorry. Oh, I got keys. Keys to everything. Keys to the world here. Whoop, wrong way. This one's wide open right now because this is where we display our trees in the dead of, in the winter when we're selling. We do sell some pre-cut trees on the farm. Sometimes the weather's really horrible and nobody wants to go out and cut a tree. And sometimes we get people who are older like me that don't feel like going out to cut a tree. Yes, they're all our pedal cars. Right now, we're all in the idea that this is the fix-it time of year. We're also fixing our pumpkin wagons and trying to figure out how much more hay, wheat, and straw we've got to put in the rope swing area.
So if you come to Springside Farm during the summer, this could be your classroom.
It will be, yes. This is a very large open space, but it changes with every season. In September, this is loaded with pumpkins, just loaded with pumpkins. All kinds. We have like 24 varieties of pumpkins, all colors, shapes, warts, big, little, gourds, ornamental corn, all kinds of things. This is a display barn and a play barn and a go have a good time barn. That tractor over there is our 75 horse use for everything tractor. Right now, you see it's been plowing snow. It's a very nice, useful size. It has a snow blower that fits on the back, a winch on the back, pulls all our hay wagons for wagon rides, and it's generally gotta have a whack tractor on the farm.
So you mentioned agritourism. Can you explain that a little bit more? And kind of, as we look around, we see a lot of buildings and structures, and different
you can see all the
fauna.
things we do on the sign.
So it looks like we have some,
Of course, it's all twisted around because the wind got it.
we have some livestock pens here.
Yep, we bring over some of our animals that are kid friendly, like our goats and our lambs and our alpacas.
And it looks like we have a bunch of trees. Is this significant? Is this just like a windbreak, or is there something more to this?
It does function as a windbreak, but it is a willow. It's made out of willow, and it is a maze. It actually is what they call the classic maze design for hundreds of years, where it has no dead ends. It never tells you you're wrong, but it just keeps giving you choices. So it's a little confusing, very good place. It's a lot of fun. 3 permanent mazes we have here. We plant a corn maze every fall, and that's one of the things people come when they come for their pumpkins. They always want to do the corn maze, different every year. The willow maze and the 2 hedge mazes made out of Norway spruce are, of course, permanent and they never change. But I'll tell you, one of those paths through that spruce maze, it might give you a couple of years. It's a bit confusing. We do have zip lines. So agritourism is where you come to a farm to buy a commodity. In our case, it's the corn and the gourds and the ornamental corn, the gourds and the pumpkins. But while you're there, you have a good time. And so they zip line and they have slides and tunnels and they do the mazes and they take our nature hike up to the high point on Bose Hill where they can see over this beautiful valley and generally just have a good time in the outdoors with the pedal cars and human foosball and all these crazy things. But it's a good day and we sell we have a lot of local food and people just come with their families and spend the day. You have a good time. That is agritourism. And as you go through here, you'll find that you might see a few little rabbit tracks running around because in January, pretty much this place is owned by rabbits. All the little bunny tracks. There's also one cat track through here. That puzzles us greatly because we don't have a cat. Oh gosh, only knows where that cat is going. The zip lines. Those are a lot of fun. They're not the scary kind where you put on a harness and get thrown off a cliff. Slide down to the end, let it off, and then you have to bring it back. I believe there's still a trolley left out. Oh my God. There's another thing I have to put away. Over here, that's out in that field out there with all the stubble. That's the corn maze. And the pumpkins were to the right. You can't see it now. And next to the field,
Could
take the
Mr. Best, could Miss Polly
Yes, ma'am.
please repeat that? There's a lot of wind interference.
I'm sorry. Out there is that was where the corn maze was. The combine came through and harvested all the corn, and we're using it for my sheep for the winter. And then over to the right, where you can't see, it's behind the willow maze right now, is where the pumpkins were. Now next year they'll switch, and the pumpkins will be where the corn was, and the corn will be where the pumpkins were, because that breaks any disease cycle or any bug cycle that might have been from one crop to the other. It makes for healthier crops. It's called rotation.
So we're gonna go up and we're gonna take a walk through the snow.
Yep.
We're gonna take a look at some of the trees and discuss the growth of trees and what a Christmas tree farmer looks for.
Okay. Right here in this section. Let me get over that. What are they looking at right now?
We are looking at the barn.
We're headed there. Over here.
Sorry, Mr. Best, it's very hard to hear.
We're walking. That's all. It's noisy. These young trees in this field.
They're looking at the trees right now.
These trees in this field, all behind you, and there, with the exception of a few bigger, taller ones. These have been in about 4 years and are just getting ready to really put on some growth. Bigger than even I thought they were this year. So they're a few years from being marked from somebody coming out and cutting them. That won't be bad. There's a few taller ones in there that were left from the previous rotation, and we are leaving because we have some kind of plans for over here that we might be expanding into this area a little bit, and this might leave Christmas tree production. That's going to be Christmas trees for a while. You might see some of the, I don't know how well they show up on your camera. There's a great pole there, and I don't know how well you guys can see that. There's several of them around the farm, and those poles are for hawks and crows and big heavy birds. The hawks and the owls and things tend to come here looking for rabbits and mice and little things that are their dinner. And if they land on the top of a baby tree or even a big tree, this top one, pretend this tree is taller. This top is very flexible when the tree is growing, and especially in the spring. And if a heavy bird lands on it, he lands on it and snaps that top off. And that kind of ruins the tree for that year. So we put the poles in instead because the birds are always happier to use something more stable. So those poles stay there all year to encourage them to be here and to keep them off of our trees. It's easier to work with Mother Nature than against her. We can't change the bird's habit, but we can give them an alternative of where to land, and they take it. When we get up here, so what the trees you're looking at right now, that we're walking through right now, are still fairly young and not ready for anything. This block up here, there's the hop pole. Come up here, you can see they're all different heights in here because trees are like kids. They all grow at different rates. Eventually they even out, but some of them grow faster. Grow a little faster than you think. Sometimes that's not good. Sometimes they need to be slowed down. out already in here this year. But some of these are still a year or two away. But when we know they're a few years away, we plant one of those little ones right next to them, in between where they were, because there was another one right there. I think there might be another little tree here. Yep, and there was one here. It must have left this year. But here's the other one. There's the baby tree. So, knowing that this tree was going to be sold this year, and it was, we planted baby trees on either side last spring. Because when the little transplants, the 4 to 5 year old transplants are planted, they're asleep, they're dormant. And then they wake up because we plant in April. And then when spring comes and they wake up, they're like, oh, where are my roots now? And they spend the first year just getting their roots organized. So these big trees really aren't in their way, including the big one that was standing where I am now. These big trees really aren't in their way. They can spend the first year just figuring out underground what they need to do. And then next year, this spring, they will start to grow a little. So the saying in the industry is, first they sleep, then they creep, and then they leap. And these guys are in the leap stage when they're going to grow really fast. See, this is its baby leader this year. So next year, it's going to start growing from this point right here. And maybe on a bigger tree, we can see something better. Pick one of these intermediate trees here.
So as we look at these trees, do you have any questions, Sarah, that we have Miss Polly answer?
Yes, we do. How do you know when a tree is ready to be cut down?
It has to be room size. It has to look pretty, have no big flaws, and the people decide whether they like it or not. We have 2 trees right here that are similar age. This one, I can't get all the snow off of it. This one has relatively even branches. And so when all these little buds on the end, all of these, and let me clear the snow off. See the little buds on the end? There's like 3 or 4 of them there. They're going to become the new branch, and all the little side branches. It's going to go out just like that. This one's got evenly spaced, and when that branches out and does its growing this year, this is going to be a pretty even tree all the way around. This tree here, not so much. This tree here has a big gap right here and a big gap right there. And we're looking at it thinking, gosh, you're growing too tall, too fast, and you're not filling out in the middle. So when it puts up its new leader, that's its leader bud at the top. And these are all going to be side branches, all these little buds. When that puts out its new leader and it goes up a foot, we're going to look at it and say, whoa, you got to take some time down here. So we will cut that leader back to, it's sort of like having it stay back a grade. So it can figure out how to fill all this in. And then, so this one's probably going to take at least another year longer than that one to become a really pretty Christmas tree. It all depends on the tree.
And then another question. How long does it take the tree to die after it's cut?
That depends. It will not grow new roots. So technically, when you cut it, it's dead. How long does it take to fall apart? Well, did you water it? If you give it a lot of warm water in the beginning and you keep it well watered, it'll last a long time. Is it warm in the room that it's in? If it's warm and you didn't water it, it's going to go faster. But you will see some of the tree. We do have some leftover trees. And when we get there, we will discuss that. But those trees have been cut since November, but they've been kept in the cold. So they're still asleep. They're dormant. They're not paying attention to anything. And all their needles are still on and they still look green and they still look like they're ready to be decorated for Christmas. So it depends. The answer is it depends. So much as it depends.
Thank you. And when did you start planting your trees?
What year or what time of year? We planted April, but we've been growing trees for 40 years. I wasn't sure where they were going with that question.
And how many trees do you think you have on your property, Miss Polly?
Somewhere between 75 and 80,000.
So 75 and 80,000. And how many do you plant in the spring when you start planting?
10,000 trees.
So-
It'll take us 2 weeks, depending on weather. Again, it depends. Mother Nature has a lot of things to say about what we do.
And do you plant all those, just the three, your husband, yourself, and your son,
Oh,
or?
no, we hire people because we want them to get in as quickly as possible. We want these poor little baby trees to be in the ground and waking up for spring, all happy with their roots all packed in with fresh dirt. And that has to be done quickly. That has to be done quickly. So we keep them cold because cold makes them think they're asleep. And we try to get them in the ground as fast as we can.
So Sarah, I think we have time for one more question, and then we'll head inside and look at some trees.
Well, that's a perfect transition because as you're thinking about heading inside, we have a question wondering how you bring the trees inside. Do you use trucks?
Oh, trucks, tractors, and all the trees to prevent their branches from being broken. After they're cut using that chainsaw, we put them through what we call a baler. And it's a machine that pulls them through and wraps a string real tight around them so they end up looking more like a hot dog than they look like a Christmas tree. But that's so their branches won't break. They're very bendy. So you can bend them up like that and keep them from getting broken when they're in there. And then we put them by hand on a trailer and bring them inside. And they're on a trailer now, but they've got some other stuff on there too. So these trees aren't baled anymore. They're getting ready for recycling. Nice to get out of that wind, isn't it? This barn is used for storage in the winter, so it doesn't look as pretty as it usually does. So, coming home from Christmas trees. All our picnic tables are in here, our training. That is someplace to put it.
So Miss Polly,
Yes.
as we're focused on agritourism and Christmas tree, you discussed got to see all the rides outside.
Yeah.
We discussed corn mazes and different types of mazes. You have pedal cars, you have a school.
We do weddings.
And this building
Yes,
is perfect for
weddings.
weddings. So how many weddings do you do a year? Do
We
people
do.
enjoy having their weddings in the middle of a farm, or?
They seem to, because they also have a lot of privacy here. And this is for the more casual weddings. These aren't for big formal weddings. There's a lot of barbecues up here. In the fall, when we're doing the pumpkin patch, there's a giant bounce pad in here that takes up almost the whole building, but it's only here for 6 weeks in the fall. And then we roll it up and put it away. That's a curtain. That's not a real wall. It rolls all the way up, and people get to look out at the Christmas trees, and it just looks beautiful in the summer. It doesn't look so beautiful now. Takes a lot of imagination, but we have a website with pictures of it all pretty. But Christmas trees are still the backbone of the farm. They are the primary occupation of this farm. So if something important has to happen in Christmas trees, that's what happens. They pay most of the bills, and that's what we worry about most. And it is a business. You have to remember that.
And this is a huge building, and it's beautiful for those who can't see. It's beautiful wood everywhere. I know you cut Christmas trees, but is that the only wood product that you take off your land?
No, we actually harvest some logs for our own use because all of the siding on this barn is from our own woods. We have some white pine, like you mentioned, like you have in your bag, that grew to be 100 years old. And we took some of those trees out. It's like, seems sad to cut a 100-year-old tree, but sometimes you need to make room for the young ones growing up anyway. And that tree was pretty much at the end of its life cycle anyway. So we got to use all the wood, a couple of them, for all the outside, all the walls. The structural stuff has to come from a mill, but anything that's called siding is all came out of our woods. And that's what we have. We do our own logging, and we bring in a portable sawmill. And there are 2 small kilns in the area. A kiln, K-I-L-N, is a machine that takes all the moisture out of the wood and dries it down, because wood, when it dries, tends to shrink a little, and you want to have it all shrunk down before you nail it on the wall rather than after.
So we have Christmas trees that have been harvested, the season's over, and now it looks like we have
This is a Canaan.
leftover Christmas trees.
It is.
What do y'all do with these leftovers?
Well, this one makes me sad because this is a perfect little tree. But is this the kind of ribbon they have in there?
They have
What kind of ribbon? have
gift
they got?
wrapping ribbon.
Gift wrapping ribbon. Okay, this is flaglet. So this was marked to tell us, because we do inventory on every single tree on the farm. And my husband walked through all the trees, and if they got an orange tag, they were between 6 and 7 feet tall. And if they're orange with black stripes, they're a Canaan. And if they're orange with polka dots, they were a Fraser. So this is a Canaan, and it's between 6 and 7 feet. I'm 5 feet, so you can tell that that's taller than me. And this tree still cut in November, all the needles are still on, but it's been kept where it's cold. So if you ask how long it takes to die, this tree will not dry out enough to burn until June, because it will be kept outside all that time. It'll be a long while before this one is actually gone. And actually at this point, because we know where this tree is going to go, maybe to a goat farm, this is still yummy. Goats will love this. Or it can be chipped up and used as mulch. And we don't own a chipper. We've talked about it many times, and that's probably on the we wish we had one list, and we might get one yet. But we are going to take them out to our burn pile, and a burn pile is a large brush pile that we just let sit until about June. And that's when all the little rabbits and all the little animals use that to hide in from the hawks. But about June, we burn it. We let the fire department know we're burning. It's called an agricultural burn, and we're allowed to do that. It doesn't have any garbage in it or any plastic. It's just deciduous. It's just trees.
So next week on Tuesday, we will be taking a virtual field trip. This series is called Cut to Compost. And we're going to see what we do. This is now a waste product. So we're going to see 2 options. So on Tuesday, we're going to go to Hidden Pastures Dairy in Turin, New York on a virtual field trip. So please sign up if you'd like to join us to see how goats reuse this product and turn it from a waste product and upcycle it. And we're also going to go to the Authority in Utica to see how things are done on an industrial level. So we have, I think, time for one last question. And then we're going to have to wrap up for today. Sarah.
We'll do a fun one for our last question. What is your tallest tree?
Our tallest tree for a Christmas tree this year was 14 feet. We have had them to 18 or taller, but they are very difficult and very heavy to handle. And so we have decided to limit that to 14 feet. The tallest tree on the farm, though, is well over 30, 40 feet. It's a white pine. Those white pines are amazing, but they are not a Christmas tree at that point. They're a log. There were several logs. But Just remember though, when you see the recycle, this tree goes 100% back to nature, whether it's in ashes, whether it's in compost, or whether it's through a goat's belly.
So
An artificial tree won't do that.
with those large 100-foot trees, those are trees that you would see in Rockefeller Center. And with that, Miss Polly, thank you so much for having us at Springside Farms. We really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll be able to return maybe in the near future to see what spring or summer looks like on a Christmas tree farm. I'm Jeremiah Best, and thank you for attending our virtual field trip. Again, if you haven't signed up for next week, we have 2 virtual field trips. So please have your teachers or your parents sign you up for that experience. That is open to any New York State students or schools. And y'all have a great afternoon.